Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the members of the public who have just stepped in. I am the chair of your council, Councillor Eleanor Reynolds, and I'd like to welcome everybody to Blackdown House this evening, despite the cold, including the members of the public and anybody who might be watching online on our YouTube channel. If the fire alarm sounds, there's no fire alarm drill planned, so please would you leave the building by the green marked signs, make your way to the nearest fire exit and follow the running man signs above the doors to the rear of the car park. The organiser of the meeting, who is Andrew Malhuish at the end of the table here, will tell you when it is safe to return. And I goodness hope that doesn't happen because it's jolly cold out. The meeting can be viewed live online on the council's YouTube page and will be recorded for anybody who wants to watch it later. So the agenda and papers have been published on the council's website in advance of the meeting. Now, I think you will appreciate that we have been under very tight deadlines. And so the papers had a couple of additions in the afternoon, which we will go through when that time comes. But they are available on the website with the additions. Could I please request that members and officers refer to page numbers when talking about anything so that everybody can find their way in the pack? So please, if you wish to speak, would you only speak if you're asked to speak? Only speak through the chair, please. Switch the microphone on your desk when you're invited to speak and then switch it off again when you have finished. Turn all your phones, please, to silent or off. And if you've not already done so, please ensure that you're logged in to your microphone with your personal card, which is lying next to your microphone. If you've got any problems with that, just ask Andrew. He can do it for you. He's a master of this now. We're going to start by doing a roll call, but first of all, I wanted to give huge thanks actually to all the people, staff and members who have essentially devoted their Christmas break to this before we start. And you know, their Christmas holidays turn out very different from how they'd imagined it. So I wanted to thank everybody who's been involved in getting us to this phase, and also all the work that's going to come in advance. But I just wanted to say that it has not been easy for anybody, but it has been masterfully done. So thank you very much to everybody who's been involved in this. Now, we're now going to start the meeting by doing a roll call and doing declarations of interest. I'm going to invite our Democratic Services Manager to read out your name. Could you please confirm your attendance by saying present and confirm whether or not you have any declaration of interest to make? Now, there have been debates about the potential extra level of interest from dual hatters and from people who might be employed by a local authority locally. I think at some point, I'm not quite sure when, I'm going to hand over to Melanie to explain what our conclusion was about this. Mel, do you want to do that now, actually, maybe?
Yeah. If I may. So yes, the dual-hatted members in the room and the members who are either employed by another local authority or who are a spouse or partner of somebody employed by a other local authority have been given appropriate advice, applied for dispensations, and those dispensations have been granted to enable them to take part. I know there have been concerns by all members generally about whether everyone should be granted a dispensation. I absolutely sympathise with that view, but that's why you're here as elected members, is to take part in this. And you only need to declare an interest where it obviously impacts on another organisation or somebody that you're connected with that is affected by these proposals. So at this stage, it is only the county council and the district councils that are affected. As we move on through the process, it could be that the parishes, the towns and parishes become affected, but not at this stage. So it is really only the dual-hatted and those who are employed by another local authority in Devon that need to be declaring interest, and obviously any dispensation that they've been granted.
Thank you very much, Mel. I did want to reassure everybody that this is something we are talking about and constantly thinking about. Right, so Andrew, I think at this point we hand over to you, please, for the roll call.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, members as well. So if you could please confirm if you're present and also if you have a declaration to declare. Councillor Arnott.
Present, none, thank you.
Councillor Aurora Bailey.
Present, nothing, thank you.
Councillor Brian Bailey.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Jess Bailey.
Present, and I've got, I'd like to declare an ORI as I'm a member of Devon County Council, so I'm a dual hatter. I've been given a dispensation by the monitoring officer I did vote in the meeting, Devon County's meeting today, against the Devon County Council proposal. I'm also employed by another authority, but they're not within the Devon area, so I don't believe I need to make any declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Blakey,
Present, no declaration.
Councillor Bloxham,
Present, no declarations.
sorry, Councillor Colin Brown,
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Jenny Brown,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Bruce. Don't think.
Sends his apologies in.
Thank you. Councillor Burrup,
Present, no declarations, thank you.
Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Chapman,
Present, no declaration.
Councillor Chubb,
Present, Devon County Councillor.
Councillor Bethany Collins,
Present, thank you. I am employed by another local authority, but they're not in the Devon area.
thank you. Councillor Roy Collins,
Present, and I've stood for Devon County Council 4 times in the past.
thank you. Councillor Davey,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Dumper,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Faithful,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Fernley,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Fitzgerald,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Gazard,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Goodman,
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Haggerty,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Ann Hall,
Present, I need to declare an ORI as I'm the spouse and employee of another Devon council, and I have an interest in the item, but I've been granted dispensation. Thank you.
thank you very much. Councillor Matt Hall,
Present, and I declare an ORI as the employee of Exeter City Council and have an interest in the said item, but have been granted a dispensation to enable me to speak and vote. Thank you.
thank you very much. Councillor Hartnell,
Present, I'd like to declare an ORI as a Devon County Councillor, and I've been granted a dispensation to enable me to speak and vote. Thank you, Chair.
thank you. Councillor Hawkins,
Present, no declaration.
Councillor Hayward,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Heath,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Hookway,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Hughes,
Yeah, thank you. County Councillor, and I have another registrable interest, but have been granted a dispensation to enable me to speak and vote.
thank you. Councillor Ingham,
Present, no declarations.
thank you. Councillor Jackson,
Present, no declarations. Thank
Councillor Jeffreys,
Present, none.
Councillor Johns,
Present, no declarations, thank you.
Councillor Young,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Kemp, Councillor Ledger, thank you. Councillor Levine, sorry, I'm just going to give his apologies. Sorry, I apologise for that. Councillor Loudon,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor McKinder,
Present, no declaration.
Councillor Martin,
Enter apologies.
Councillor McCullum,
Present, no declaration.
Councillor Nicholas,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor O'Leary, Councillor Olive,
Present and no declarations, thank you.
Councillor Parr,
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Riddell,
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Rickson,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Rylance,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Smith, Councillor Toy,
President, no declarations.
Councillor Whibley. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Ragg.
Present. I'd have said if I had anything, sorry.
Vice Chair has no declarations.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Right, okay, so of course, when Councillor Whibley arrives, we will have to ask him whether he has any declarations. Right, moving on, we have confidential or exempt items. There are no confidential or exempt items on the agenda. So moving swiftly to item 4, which is our one item. Leader, would you like to present your item?
I would be delighted to, Chair. I'd rather Andy did it, but I'll do it because it's political, isn't it? But we can be in good shape here because we've got Andy over there who is able to answer any technical questions. I could have a go, but I think we're safer with him. We've got Tracy as well, of course, who's very much across this. So first of all, welcome Councillor Whibley in from the Arctic. Shall I wait for him to sit
Councillor
down?
Whibley, do you have any declarations to make on the item on the agenda? And are you present? He is present and has no declarations. Fantastic. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Chair. So going to the agenda item itself, first of all, thank you to all of you for making time tonight and turning out in force for this extraordinary meeting. You will understand that I won't rehearse the timings on this, except that the local government white paper came out on the 16th of December. It threw a curved ball. It was not expected. It was expected that it would go for devolution in some sense. It was not expected as a certainty that it would go for total root and branch local government reorganisation, which in essence signalled the abolition of county councils and the abolition of district councils, and that is obviously particularly relevant to Devon. So subsequent to that, as you can imagine, there has been a blizzard and a flurry of meetings, particularly of the Devon Districts Forum. Ideally, we would have had a Team Devon meeting, which involves county as well, which would have happened actually on Tuesday, but that was cancelled. And I think that was a misstep by county. I can understand why. And I think moving forward, it's very important that we re-establish Team Devon, and I'm sure we will, and that we collaborate as we move forward. So you will see that the Appendix 2 is the joint statement that was agreed by all of the districts, including Exeter. So that is districts led by Liberal Democrats, Independents and Labour. And the reason that we had to write that so urgently last week and publicise it last week was in anticipation of all of the meetings taking place, some of them tonight and some of them earlier this week, in relation to this subject. And in particular, to be frank, we were aware, although they didn't publish their report until yesterday afternoon, we were aware of the direction of travel that the county were likely to go. And they have backed off to an extent what they had been saying publicly, that they were going to advocate for a single unitary. They went quiet on that and the recommendations today, but nevertheless, they did pass recommendations saying, in essence, leave it to us and we can get it done for you by next May government. So therefore, please can you cancel the elections? We kind of suspected they might do that, and that is therefore why we wrote the statement that we did. And we brought it for you today, looking for endorsement of that statement. Normally, of course, ideally it would have come to you before it was issued, but in sense of the time available, there simply wasn't that opportunity. The second endorsement we're looking for there is to endorse the potential, and that is the key word there, of a mayoral combined authority to cover the peninsula, and that's Devon, Plymouth, Torbay and Cornwall. That doesn't in any way commit this council to that moving forward, but at the moment it looks like the only show in town. So we wanted to send a positive signal to government that we hear you, you seem to be saying Devon and Cornwall, we're not going to do a Cornwall, we're not going to go, we're not going the other side of the Tamar. We would be happy in principle to do so. The third point C there is motherhood and apple pie, really, isn't it? It's about going to the points made by in discussions earlier today amongst councillors about consulting and engaging, and that is going to be absolutely critical. We can't just ram this through, which I'm afraid is another reason why I profoundly disagree with what Devon did earlier today. They do not have time to properly consult on this. And we benefit from having, as our head of legal here, an officer who went through all of this with Somerset, where it took 2.5 years. So it is completely unrealistic to expect it to happen by May next year, for elections May next year, which means it would all have to be done and dusted by the end of this year. Well, look how long it's taken for us to do local plans, you know, and we're still at them. And this is more complicated. The second endorsement we're looking for support for, please, is around a preferred pathway.
Could I just
Now,
interrupt for a second,
the
please,
reason-
Leader? Could I? Because
Oh, sorry, so deaf, Jen.
these next two items, 2 and 3, appeared on the agenda this afternoon. So I think it might be helpful if we had them up on the screens as well, please, Andrew, just so that in case people haven't had time to catch up with them, that they have them in their sight. Please go ahead.
Okay, so that's up on the screen. Lovely, thank you. Is that in focus for everybody? Probably is. So you can see there under C, under 2, about a preferred pathway. Now, that is expressing two thoughts. One, that Devon, in these circumstances, should be 2 unitaries. Why that? Well, that's what the maths dictates. The government are saying that unitaries should be roughly 500,000 as a minimum. And if you look at our neighbours, and they are neighbours to us, we join on the map all the way up and down, that configuration of North, Mid, East, Timbridge and Exeter does work, and it makes a certain amount of strategic work as well. That is not to say where this is where this would land in the end, but if today we don't send some form of signal about some form of direction of travel, Devon County are out of the blocks saying we can do it. Exeter City, even as I speak now, are voting to say we can do it, let us have it. We, as the other districts, need to get our act together and come forward with a preferred format too. Number 3 there re-emphasises the point that we think there should be 2 unitaries in this situation. Again, the maths dictates it, but that it is in the interest of the people of Devon, genuinely, that Plymouth is in one and Exeter is in other. And implicit in that is that we do not support Plymouth as its own special case and Exeter as its own special case. Both of them are nowhere near the 500,000 that has been explicitly required, and the only possible reason for the government to agree to that would be political. And I don't think we should look to that. I think we should look at that much more positively. We work brilliantly with Exeter already. I always say how fond I am of them. You know, I've lived there for years, and the work we do with them in the west end of our district, sorry to use that term, Chair, but around the enterprise zone, around Cranbrook that's now turning round, the work we've got planned in the future around the new town, everything about the number of people who travel into Exeter for work and for education and for other reasons, but also, and this is where I think there's a slight overconfidence about Exeter, they need to bear in mind how many people travel out of Exeter into Mid-Devon and into East Devon and into Cambridge to work and commute and do retail things as well. So although Exeter is a key driver of our area, we are collectively the key driver, and Exeter happens to be in the centre. And I wish it well, but I don't think that there is merit in either case for Plymouth or Exeter to be a special micro-unitary. It doesn't seem to make any sense. The fourth is the usual, as you'd expect, which is asking for delegated authority for Tracy, working with me and with John Loudon, the portfolio holder for Councilham, corporate coordination to advance negotiations, which we obviously have to do. And they will become negotiations. At the moment, they've been chats, haven't they? They've been informal. Now the gun has been fired and we need to start actually coming forward with some ideas. The reassurance I will give you here in blood is that we will not overstep the mark if we're getting anywhere near any form of agreement. That comes to you, the council, for debate and approval. So this cannot just be done, and I'm afraid I fear maybe the way that Devon are going, this must not be done in smoke-filled rooms. If we receive an invitation from others to work with us moving forward, that needs to come to you guys and for you to be across that as soon as possible. So I will give you my personal undertaking on that. And to that end, the fifth recommendation is that we receive a further report in February updating on those negotiations before interim proposals are submitted to central government, which are expected, as I said, I think earlier, by the end of March. So it's a very, very tight schedule indeed. So those are the recommendations. I propose them to you, present them to you. I'd like to look for a seconder and then back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So we have a proposer. Oh, Councillor Loudon, please. Are you wishing to second them?
I'm wishing to second, Chair.
Okay, so we have a proposer and a seconder for this set of recommendations. So we can now move to debate. So if you would like to speak, please, can you raise your hand? My glamorous assistant will take down names. So John Heath first, and then Jess Bailey, and then Colin Brown, and then Peter Faithful. And then we'll... Oh, over you,
Thank
number
you,
5.
Chair. Hope you can all hear me. I am the Independent District Councillor for Bere, Branscombe and West Seaton. Just thought I'd like to make that clear for members of the public and all those watching from around the world. Unitary authorities are large units of local government that can have implications for rural communities in a number of ways. And there are 7 issues which require addressing, which I will succinctly summarise. The first of those is responsiveness. Unitary authorities can be more remote from local communities, which could make them less responsive to local concerns. The second area is cost. Unitarisation can be costly and disruptive in the short term, even if it can lead to cost savings in the longer term. The third point is public support. There is generally not strong public support for unitarisation, and that's been proven by research taken. The fourth is efficiency. While some say that larger unitary authorities are more efficient, effective and cost effective, others say that there are no guaranteed benefits from creating them. And the fifth is care services. Splitting up care services across multiple unitaries could lead to performance issues and destabilisation of the local market. And the penultimate point is IT. Councils may be using different IT systems which can make merging structures and working practices difficult. And the final point is property. Unitary authorities may need to rationalise surplus and underutilised property. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Heath. Next up, we have Councillor Jess Bailey, please, and then Councillor Brown. And then if I've forgotten somebody, please do wave at me. There's another 3 people after that, but yeah, you're on the list, Tim. So Councillor Jess Bailey first, please.
Thanks. At this stage, it's just a question, really. And so I wanted to ask, item number 2 has been recently introduced and puts forward some other councils that are going to be explorations with. I wanted to ask, I don't know whether this is for the leader or for the chief exec, but do those other councils have this paragraph in their equivalent meetings that are happening today, tomorrow, yesterday? Thank you.
So this point and the next point came out of Cabinet yesterday, but I'm going to pass this over to the leader for an answer, please.
Yes, that's a good question, Councillor Bailey. They don't, but they are aware that we do. So we have shared that with them in advance. And the reason for that is there have been discussions with all of the leaders, obviously. So I want to put that forward. If you weren't reasonably confident, they weren't all going to go, hang on, what's he talking about here? But the feeling is that East Devon is, by population, the largest district, much larger than some of the other districts. And we need at this point to try and show just that extra bit of attempt to show some leadership, to aim for some direction, because otherwise all of the other motions which will go through, which are excellent at other councils, leave a bit of doubt about what to do on Monday. And I think if we put this here, I think others will go, okay, well, somebody's come up with a plan. That's rubbish. We'll go against that. But and I hope it also has implicit in it our positive desire to want to continue to work with Exeter as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Bailey. Worth pointing out that East Devon District Council is the largest area in population apart from Plymouth. We are the largest. Right. So who do we have next? Councillor Colin Brown, please, and then Councillor Benningham.
All right, thank you, Chair. This council has in front of it tonight 4 recommendations to approve. I cannot accept A in the first recommendation, that is approving the joint leader statement from Devon District Forum. The second B recommendation, to promote the establishment of a Memorial Combined Authority to cover Devon, Plymouth, Torbay and Cornwall, is something Devon County agreed with, and it was approved today. And it has been approved by a number of other district councils. Then we come to the third recommendation, to change the 10 councils in Devon to a smaller number of suitable sized unitaries. This, in my mind, is wrong. We need to keep Devon whole. By splitting Devon up, will we just be reorganising district councils? The government has decided county councils and district councils will go, and they will end up the day deciding what form we will take. The only question they have asked at present is, are we prepared to have a mayor and go unitary? I sympathise for the officers and staff of East Devon at this time of uncertainty, and I urge the council to liaise with Devon County to help make transition easier. I would like to ask for the vote to be recorded, and we take A, B and C endorsements separately, the way that other districts have done.
Well, we already have a proposer and a seconder for the recommendations en bloc.
No, you don't. That's separate, you can do that. Yeah.
What time do you want to go home? It's going to be like 11 o'clock at this rate.
You must do
Can
that.
still do recording. Okay. So, are you, Councillor Ingham, are you seconding the call for a recorded vote? Yes. Okay, so we need to go to a vote on the recorded vote.
Yes, because you need a majority to agree a recorded vote.
So do we do that now or do we do it at the end?
You can.
Okay, so we're going to do the vote on whether or not we hold a recorded vote now. So which is going to involve Andrew Malhoosh again going through the entire register and asking you whether you agree or disagree with a recorded vote.
Yeah, we're having a vote on whether we're going to go have a recorded vote.
Yes, I do.
effectively.
Yeah, Councillor Bailey, can you just wait for a second, please? We're in the middle of. No, this is not a point of order if you're merely interrupting. What is your point of order?
There was no mention at all of taking this en bloc when the presentation was made to us this evening. None whatsoever.
Councillor Bailey, the leader proposed the recommendations en bloc and they were seconded by Councillor Loudon right after he did his presentation. That said, I'm told by the monitoring officer that that's not a reason not to take them separately, but I would quite like to not detain us for 5 hours if at all possible. So if we could be efficient in our debates, that would be fantastic. But that said, now we're going to move to a vote on whether or not we have a recorded vote. And we have to do that as a show of hands, don't we?
Yes, you have to have a majority of members supporting
Okay.
a recorded vote.
So if you support holding a recorded vote on the, Councillor Loudon, yes?
What would a recorded vote be on? Is it on everything that is put in front of us each time it is put in front of us, or on a specific motion?
So, Councillor Brown, you proposed a recorded vote. What was your notion when you did that? Which bits would you like a recorded vote on?
Well, on item 1 separately.
Just on item 1?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair enough, isn't it? So is that also what you were seconding, Councillor Ingham? Okay. Councillor Hayward?
Thank you. I personally, I can't see the point. You do a recorded vote on none, or you do it on all. So if you're going to do a recorded vote, you do it on 1, 1A, 1B, 1C, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Not necessarily. I wouldn't say that's the case.
I just think
I'm just going
if a
to
recorded
commune
vote,
with the
that's
monitoring officer for a second.
All these things are so intrinsically linked together
No.
that if you either do it, you take an en bloc vote, which was the initial proposal from Councillor, the leader, and Councillor Loudon. So that would have negated that, and I would have recalled for a recorded vote anyway. So by virtue of that, if Councillor Brown is asking for just 1A, B and C, I'm going to ask for a recorded vote for 2, 3, 4 and 5.
So I believe that what Councillor Brown is asking for us is for us to consider 1A only separately, and then the rest of them all together. Is that right? Oh, you want the 3 separately? Okay. You want everything to be a recorded vote? Okay. I hope it doesn't get down to -10 before we leave then. Right. Okay. So we have a proposal, please, ladies and gentlemen, we have a proposal in front of us that every single item on the agenda and the subsets be all the subject of a recorded vote. So that's the proposal from Councillor Colin Brown and seconded by Councillor Ingham, and that is what we're about to vote on a show of hands. If you are in favour of that happening in that way, would you please raise your hand now? If you are against, oh, hang on, we might need to count actually, sorry. Can you put your hand back up if you're in favour, please? Because I think we're going to need to count. I've got 12 this side, I think. Hang on. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. And if you are against proceeding in this fashion, would you please raise your hand now? I think that's quite clearly carried, isn't it? So therefore, we will have a recorded vote on every single separate item within these recommendations, which will take quite a while. So would you please be as efficient as you can? Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Chair. Given Councillor Brown and Councillor Ingham's request to do 1A, B and C individually, as a caveat to that, I believe we can then revert to 2 and to 5 en bloc, because
that's what I proposed just before we got to this stage, but we've already gone to voting on them all separately. Sorry. Right. Okay. So where do we get to? So with that in mind, then we can actually talk about 1A first, can't we? Bearing in mind it's super, super cold and it's only getting colder, would you please be as efficient as possible? Don't repeat yourselves. Don't repeat what other people have said. You don't need to go on at length. She said going on at length. So we are now not speaking about all the recommendations together. We are only speaking about 1A for a short time. Well, it is, but apparently you want to vote on them separately, so you want to talk about them separately. Okay, you're going to be super efficient.
Sorry,
That's
can
awesome.
I, point of order, Chair? I'm sorry, the disrespect you're being shown by Councillor Ingham here is completely unacceptable, and I would urge you to bring him to order. Councillor Ingham, if you're going to sit there, you cannot barrack the chair like this.
I'm sorry, Councillor Ingham, you have actually requested that we talk about all these separately, so we are going to do that now. Right, so we're going to talk about item 1A, which is the Joint Leaders Statement from the Devon Districts Forum, and we're going to move in debate strictly about that. So anybody who had their hand up before to talk about every single recommendation, I'm now scratching that list. We're going to have to start again. Right, Councillor Ingham, an interruption is not a point of order. Do you have a point of order?
Yes, I do, because
I didn't actually say that. That wasn't right. Our motion was that we should have a recorded vote on those separately. We never said we have to debate them separately. I'm quite happy to debate them all in one. I think it'd be a lot quicker, Chair.
It would be a lot quicker. However, you have asked for a separate, I mean, there must have been a reason why you wanted a separate vote. So I feel that maybe there's a need for a debate. Okay. It will be easier and it will be quicker, but I just thought that because you wanted it voted on separately, you also wanted it debated separately. No? Okay, fair enough. Okay, right. Well, let's move back into where we were before then. No, we haven't finished this list yet first, Vice Chair. So Councillor Ingham, you are actually next on the list. Do you still want to say anything?
Oh, yes.
Efficiently, please.
This one's really important, Chair. This debate's probably the most important one. I've been here 30 years, most important one I've been involved in. So I'll be as succinct as being relevant allows me to. So I recollect over 15 years ago in the full council listening to the then leader, Sarah Randall Johnson, saying how opposed she was to any form of unitary authority involving East Devon District Council. And I also remember a couple of years later as a county councillor saying what an opportunity we had missed and what a shame it was. I'm not surprised, of course, why our current leader also has those similar attitudes, and perhaps our CEO feels duty-bound to support him in those feelings, just as Mark Williams
Could I just
did.
interrupt for a second? Our CEO, I'm quite certain, has her own ideas on things. So please, would you limit any potential attacks on our members of staff? Thank you.
That wasn't, I said she would support our leader and what he believes. Any CEO would do that, as Mark Williams did to Sarah Randall Johnson. Whether he believed it or not, I wouldn't know. But that's why we have CEOs to help us through. At that time, I remember Councillor Mike Green, who was the leader of the Independents, voting against that and for the idea of a unitary authority. I remember distinctly because I was the only other member who did the same. There was only two of us. Everyone else thought that we should oppose unitary status. But I ask you to bear in mind this evening that what we're being asked to do is to hopefully step outside of our own bubble of expectation and subjective involvement and representation and think what is best for our communities and overall what is best for Devon and all the people who live in the county of Devon. And forgive me, Chair, I live in East Devon, but I've never considered myself as an East Devonian. I'm a Devonian, and I aspire, as hopefully everyone else does, and remembers that we go for what's best for Devon. I remember also there was a councillor here, Councillor Brian Costello, back in the 70s, 50 years ago. He wrote a paper called Local Rates, and he was saying it's about time we considered having local taxes for local government, and then the next step would be that we would have better local leadership. Crazy, isn't it? More than 50 years later, we're still thinking about doing this. And he was laughed at the time, and now it looks as though our national government believe he was right in what he was thinking about. That takes us in that principle towards the idea of having local mayors, because that's what Councillor Costello was alluding to, that we have figureheads. He thought, leaders of councils, but perhaps mayors is the
Councillor
right
Ingham,
thing.
we're not actually talking about beyond the potential for the establishment of an overall mayoral system. We're not actually talking about that particularly tonight.
We've got
About local
an
mayors.
endorsement here that it should be considered.
Potential to promote the establishment of. It's a very relatively minor part of the. So could you please get on to the substance of what you're about to say? That would be
I
wonderful.
certainly am.
Thank you.
So I think when we look at where we are now, where we enjoy significantly enhanced communications and data resource which enables better control, assurance and reduced risks within our communities, then now really is a very good time for us to take that step and go towards unitary authorities and consideration of mayoral status for representation within Devon and Cornwall. So if I whiz through those points, I would say 1A, no. B, yes. C, no. 2, 3, 4, 5.
You will have the chance
no.
to vote on all of these
I know,
at the end.
you
Councillor
wanted
Ingham.
me to be succinct.
Yes, I would
and
like. I
am.
wanted you to speak about it, not tell us how you're going to vote in advance. There's no need to do
I'm
that.
not saying how I'm going to vote. I'm saying this is what I believe is right and wrong.
Okay, so we need to have a debate, about it,
Yeah.
so everybody can make up their mind and then vote in the way they see fit at the end.
I'm making it clear how I think that these endorsements I can't support except for one of them.
And everybody else will listen to the debate and also make up their own mind. So thank you very much, Councillor Ingham. Right, who was next on my list? Councillor Dumper, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think I'd like to say thank you first to both our leader, Councillor Paul Arnott, and to Chief Exec and all others who contributed to this, particularly bearing in mind it's been across the festive season and it's been dropped like a lead weight on everyone across the country. I think what we've seen from the government so far in the 6 months it's been in office has been that it is extraordinarily vulnerable to various pushback from the population as a whole. Now, so far, of course, the amount of publicity around this has not been terrific. People are not yet, in general, engaged with all this debate. But I think when people start realising how important, as the leader has said, how important this is to everyone because it involves the democratic framework, I think it should be realised that we can't just respond on a 2 to 3 week timescale. Okay, we may do different things down the line, but I think we need to wait. We need to wait for various things. One is the key issue, which Councillor John Heath has mentioned already, finance. We haven't either got any inkling at all from the white paper whether there will be financial changes to the way local government is financed, and we also potentially waste a lot of resources doing.
Could I just interrupt you for a second, please? We're not going to have the chance to negotiate on deadlines, so do you have a crucial point that you want to get across?
I do. There are 2 or 3
Have you got an ask? Okay.
Finance is one, both finance from the point of view of local taxes or whatever, and finance from the point of view of what we spend and the time we spend doing it, reorganising. And
you're highlighting that as a difficulty in this process.
That. I'm highlighting a point that was made in discussion earlier about the position of town and parish councils, how those relate into the system, and also because it is a complete change to current practice, is the fact that we are creating a sub-regional structure, if you like, across the country. This has not happened before, and we should be spending more time dealing with that. Now, we're reacting to the proposals on unitary, etc., and I'm not going to object to whatever unitary as long as it has local acceptance, local backup. So personally, I'm not in favour of the item in the letter about rejecting any particular sort of unitary. I think it will become clearer as we go on what we need, and I accept the leader's point that we will be negotiating as we go forward, but I think that kind of thing needs to be made clear to our public so that our public knows that we will take into account all the thoughts that are being expressed. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dumpler. So worth pointing out that this letter was negotiated between all the districts, and so we're not at liberty to alter it in any way tonight. So it has to stay as it is. So what I'm picking up on is that you think it will take a lot longer than is being published at the moment, and that there are very many difficulties to iron out. And I think we're all pretty conscious of that. And I just hope that Whitehall is as well. Right, who was next? Councillor Faithful, please.
Thank you, Chair. First thing, the subject of 500,000 was the minimum. It was not a recommended number. It was no less than. So to say that we need to split Devon down the middle is not really true at all. It's perfectly acceptable to have the whole county in one unit. Another thing, searching the various councils across the region, and I had a little look on Cornwall, seeing what meetings they might be having, and they weren't having any. But what I did do was I searched on their calendar. One of the main subjects for East Devon District Council, what we're concerned about, is planning. And in Cornwall, they have 3 separate units or committees, one for West, one for Central, and one for East. So and they are already a unitary body. They've had, was it round 2 or second, whatever it is, in November of 23. And if they can do it, surely we can do it as well. There's all this talk about losing local representation, and the one thing that we deal with is planning. So I can't see why we can't have an East Devon area committee and work along those lines. So I think that's. I mean, if I was all right to come back later if I find anything else. But I think
If
that's
we've time, yes, that will be absolutely fine.
Thanks.
So thank you for that contribution, Councillor Faithful. I'm not sure there were any questions held up in it. It was more comments, wasn't it? Councillor Burrett, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be brief. I also like to extend my thanks to all the employees and members who've worked on this over the festive period. It must have been a miserable thing to do. My background's in business process re-engineering, for those who actually care. So I took some interest in the Right Honourable Minister's covering letter. And he talks about vision of simpler structures. Well, okay, that ticks a lot of boxes. So I do have some empathy with where they seem to be coming from. Will it be clearer to residents who want to know who to look to for local issues? Yes, it probably would, because I don't know about anybody else, but I get 50% of the queries that come to me are nothing to do with the East Devon District Council. And I simply divert traffic in other directions. There's actually a statement in paragraph 2 of, you can see it on page 11, of Mr. McMahon's letter, which is almost extraordinary. It actually says there will be fewer politicians able to focus on delivering. Read that as you will. But I found that quite extraordinary that actually got through editing. Devolution, Chair, is actually defined as the transfer or delegation of power to a lower level. Devolution, this is not. This is pure reorganisation on a grand scale. Okay, does it have the potential to reduce pressure on house building by imposing targets on much larger areas than just East Devon? Maybe. There's a flicker of hope on that. However, it's an ill-disguised financial reorganisation under the guise of devolution. It's going to lead to confusion and delay and, excuse me, Chair, sorry. It's not evolution, it's revolution. Revolution is appropriate in certain circumstances, Chair. So if you are in dire straits, if you are in an emergency situation, you need a revolution. Right? That's not the situation. That's not the situation for any of the authorities that we're talking about, actually. I mean, they are in a pretty poor financial state, admittedly, but it ain't revolution time. And what you're going to do is you're going to spend the next 2.5 years running around, focusing on this instead of getting the job done. And this government talks about wanting or aspiring to 1.5 million houses being built and easing the way for that in the course of this very parliament. And they're already, 8 months in, and I don't see any progress whatsoever in increasing that flow. This is only going to be counterproductive to that target. There's no way in any period of time that is going to be achieved with this going on at the same time. So I have a fundamental issue with the whole concept. I do support the approach that's being proposed at the moment, with the exception of paragraph 4 or item 4 on this. And item 4 gives full authority to the chief executive in consultation with the leader. The leader caveated and promised to bring back to this committee or this council before going to further negotiations, etc. That's not what paragraph 4 currently says. Paragraph 4 currently says you have willy-nilly. You can do it exactly what you like. So if you want to put in something about, and we will come back and put it to council, then I would suggest that maybe paragraph 4, item 4 rather, is amended. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Burrup, if it helps, I think the leader would like to step in at this point, but it is possible to slightly amend that one to reflect what you've just said, such as something along the lines of, if any substantial changes are to be made, they will come back to full council, something like that. So I'm going to probably pass over to the leader at this point.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair, and thank you, Chris, very much. Absolutely, I think it's in the drafting in a way. I mean, 5 is absolutely meant to be the thing that Copper Bottoms, a further report in February. What obviously I can't undertake to do is give everybody a daily phone call about what somebody said to me from some remote part of Devon earlier this afternoon that was contradicted by somebody later that evening. But happy if there's an elegant way of redrafting that to slightly curb my powers, I'm very happy to do so.
If you did have a form of words that you wanted to come forward with, Chris, I don't know if you've thought about anything.
I'm not clever enough with words, Chair, but I'm sure somebody
Councillor Ingham.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. My concern is the word negotiate. That means you're going to create
And
potentially...
advance the position, I think it sort of implies, doesn't it?
Yes, on our behalf, you're going to create something that's not what we want. You can consult, that's different.
So maybe that's the word that needs to change then.
Could that
Are
be
okay, Chris?
discussions, Chair, maybe?
Our glorious monitoring officer has a potential form of words. Mel, are you ready for it?
Well, the first change we're suggesting is we just change the word negotiations to discussions, so advanced discussions around the form. So I think that will help. So I don't know if that overcomes the issue altogether or whether we still need any further changes.
Does that satisfy?
It would satisfy me, Chair.
And Councillor Ingham, would you be willing to second that as a word?
Yes.
So we're switching negotiation. Where is it? Was it negotiate?
Yes.
Negotiations to discussions. Okay.
Chair, we will put the wording back up on the screen once we've continued.
That will go
the
back
debate.
up on the screen. Right. So, Councillor Borup, had you finished speaking?
I have, thanks, Chair.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Next up, we have Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Chair. In answer to Councillor Colin Brown and Councillor Peter Faithfull, I think the logic, the way I looked at it, the logic of creating 2 Devon, an east and a west, is to actually equal up the 2 unitaries to match that of Cornwall. So in a mayoral authority, it would be 3 matching equal parts. So that there's a logic to splitting up Devon into two. So it's goodbye to districts and it's goodbye to county councils. It's not up for debate. It's an instruction or possibly a requirement from central government, and we must proceed shortly to the nearest exit. But before we leave, we are required to come up with a plan of how best to govern this new unitary area for the long-term future. Our fellow county councillors today voted to proceed on that road and requested to government to cancel the council elections in May this year. This, they say, is to allow them to proceed at speed and electioneering, PERDA, and training the new cohort of new councillors don't get in the way of preparing to pass over governance to this new unitary council. I can see the councillors' logic in this, and if they were to go with an election in May, the candidate standing will not now be going to represent their residents to run a county council, but to oversee the closure of an institution and to plan for a unitary council instead. A very different beast. For ourselves, we have 2 years and 4 months, and I think a couple of days, I'm counting, and our term of office, and we will be required to oversee the handover of governance, but at the same time, run this council as business as usual. As I see it as a portfolio holder, I now have the extra responsibility of ensuring our staff are as protected as much as possible during these radical changes. It's been a tough 6 years and we have had many challenges, but many successes, and I would like to thank all our officers and staff for helping bring in these many new policies, improvements to services, and especially bringing the many vital environmental issues to the forefront, and one of the central pillars for this administration. So thank you. As I see it, the task now is to carry on that work and ensure that the brilliant work we have achieved will now transfer over to the Unitary Council for the whole of Devon, or even maybe a wider area benefit from all this work we have put in. So that's my piece for tonight.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. Thank you for those words as well. Councillor Matt Hall, please. You're up next.
Thank you, Chair. Just like our monitoring officer, I have also been through this all before. And that is why I particularly wanted a dispensation to be able to speak tonight, because I think it's quite important. Personally, I think there is a lot of wrong within local government. It's not just about how things are done, and how it's financed. But the way to deal with that is an adult conversation, one that looks at all angles and all possibilities. Having created a unitary authority, having worked with and in a unitary authority, it doesn't solve the problems. Adult social care, children's services, SEND transport, the list goes on and on and on. All it does is get kicked down the road. It doesn't solve it. That is why I believe there is a need for proper discussion with regards to this. Local government finances and services, as I say, will not be solved by just simply reducing management or selling off a few buildings. I ask those that particularly are more involved in these negotiations to remember, when drawing a line across any county, it's very easy to go with district boundaries, but we must remember, where are the service hubs? If you find yourself the wrong side of the service hubs, everything that you're trying to save, you end up spending. Where does this 500,000 figure come from? You know, the viability of running a council in a more urban area compared to a rural area is completely different. And I think, and this is the most important thing, I think for all of us as we go through these negotiations, we make these voting decisions, this actually isn't at the end of the day about council, this is about people. Whether that's staff, councillors, or mostly our residents. At the end of this process, it is likely good staff will lose their jobs. Good councillors will lose their role. And when you lose good, it's only the residents that suffer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for those moving words and a warning from history, Councillor Hall. Councillor Johns, please, next.
Thank you, and I'm happy to speak, but I think Jess has had her hand up a lot longer than I did. You sure? Okay. Point 4, where Chris raised it earlier, and I'm glad that he did, where it says grants delegated authority to the chief executive in consultation with the leader and portfolio holder, etc., etc. I don't see how that's very democratic. I know Paul is the leader, and I don't have a problem with him at all. He knows that, but we do have other groups within here, and I think that they should be involved in this process as well. So with regards to, I appreciate fully that you can't feed back to every single councillor, but each council group has a leader. So you could feed back to the leaders of those groups and see what they think, and then they could feed it back to the rest of us and get it that way. That would possibly lengthen your process very slightly, but not lengthen it massively. So that would be the first thing that I'd raise. The second thing was that I actually went in and had a look at the other councils that are putting forward recommendations, etc. And as pointed out by various other councillors, the government aren't actually looking at the communities or the residents at all. They're just not. They're looking at how they can save a few quid by cutting off a few snakes' heads, etc., etc. We all know it's not going to work. It's just a box-ticking exercise, and I don't agree with it at all. But Mid Devon, they have a recommendation which states, it's recommendation number 5, so you don't have to look it all up. It states to commit to comprehensive public consultation in advance of any business case submission and to lobby the government on the importance of a Devon-wide referendum to ensure that any revised local government structures meet the principles of devolved powers to local communities rather than in being imposed by Whitehall. And I think that's quite important because, as was pointed out earlier, Paul, you mentioned yourself, town and parish councils, etc., and all the communities that are going to end up picking up all the slack without the financial support, because none of that's even been mentioned so far by government, as far as I'm aware. They haven't been involved in any of this process. We've hardly been involved in this process, but they've certainly not been involved in this process. And as Matt pointed out earlier, and various other councillors have, you know, it's going to be the communities themselves that have to pick up what the government have decided to try and rush through very, very quickly. So I would ask that that recommendation itself was possibly put in with our recommendations, if that's at all possible, so that the community at least feels involved, because I feel that is really, really important. If we're going to lose the district council, we're aware of that. But the communities that we represent are not mentioned at all in the white paper at all, which I think is appalling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johns. I think I might actually try to see if the leader has anything to say about that, because I know that there have been frantic discussions over the last 3 weeks. It has been pretty fast-paced. And you know, I think as much information has been shared as has been possible to share in that very small amount of time. I personally am not hopeful that there is going to be time built in for extensive consultation in this process. It's not, I don't know, other people have been discussing more with Whitehall and hearing the good news from Whitehall. I'm going to pass this over to Paul. I think, Paul, you tell us what you know.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Bailey, for allowing me to come in before you in the order. So I understand why Mid Devon have that recommendation there, and it's very much what you might expect from a very strongly Liberal Democrat authority, if I may say so, because they are almost entirely Liberal Democrat there. I think the reality of a referendum, whether government would even agree to allow us to have a referendum and on what grounds, and then the risks related to that being turned into a political football where you get the wrong answer, and the wrong answer is always the thing that we live in a populist age. I can imagine one particular party who aren't represented here at the moment coming in seeking to reform through the referendum, if I put it that way. And I think that's it. I think it's really risky. We are an elective democracy. We are all elected by thousands of people. What is it? 152,000 people live in East Devon. The electorate is about 75, something like that. We need to be able to, along with our colleagues in other councils, to make some decisions, I think. So I think it's a real hostage to fortune. I can see the virtue of it. Equally, I think maybe what we're silent on in this set of recommendations, and I wonder if we need to come back to this because it keeps coming up, is around towns and parishes. Everybody's concerned that they're not getting a voice. And it was said earlier, I think by Councillor Hayward, you know, they're like a throwaway paragraph in the white paper. The question is what we can do to make sure they're heard. Now, I understand there was some kind of agreement between the Devon Association of Local Councils and Devon County coming forward. I haven't seen any detail with that. That needs to be firmed up. And maybe that's a way of doing it, is trying to find a way either in this debate or in when it comes back in February, because this is all about reacting to the date we've got tomorrow, and then can we get on with something, preparing ourselves for something at the end of March, whether at the next debate in February we examine through our offices what the towns and parishes want us to do to help them get engaged, and then bring forward something then. But we need to take guidance from government on this, because we've got no idea really what they want us to do. And as I think maybe it was Councillor Dumper or somebody else said earlier, the risks in this are not just that it's undemocratic around the towns and parishes, it's that they get dumped on. In other words, that just as the government are looking at our reserves and calculating that our district reserves, oh, let's put those together, that can just about pay off the county's reserves, and the county fancy that too, never mind tomorrow or the day after. There's a real risk in town and parish reserves as well, that some of the things we do now will get pushed down to them, and a council that's been well run and has between 100,000, maybe over 1 million in reserves, they get required to pick up some of the bill. So, sorry, that's a long way round, Vicky, of saying I'm not sure a referendum would be helpful on this. I think it would become divisive and, in the current atmosphere, populist, and I don't really want to be on Elon Musk's Twitter, if that's okay.
If Twitter is still a thing by then. Councillor John Loudon next, please. You're up next. Oh, hang on. Sorry. Wait a minute. Councillor Faithful, do you have to come back right now, or do you want to come back later on? Is it going to be quick? Okay.
What was I saying? Commenting about paragraph 4, is there a way that we can have more, I think it's what others are certainly suggesting, having just general more open meetings where we can all make a contribution, whether if it's just online or something like that. And the other point is tomorrow is the deadline surely for the stopping the election in May rather than anything else. I thought that was discussed at Devon this morning.
Okay, Tracy is going to speak about that actually, because I think she's had an idea.
Just trying to marry the two suggestions together. We can do monthly briefings, which we've already committed to all members, so we can ensure that this is key to those discussions and obviously any feedback brought back in. With reference to the Mid-Devon proposal that Vicky was suggesting, I wondered whether we could look at suggesting the latter part of the proposal, which is to lobby the government on the importance of a Devon-wide referendum to ensure that any revised local government structures meets the principles of devolved powers to local communities rather than being imposed by Whitehall. I think that would be more palatable in the sense around the timeline that we've got, and the obviously financial commitment that would be needed for the first part. So I don't know whether that would be helpful.
Does that
If I may come back.
slightly?
Yeah.
It was Councillor Faithful who spoke
sorry.
last. Councillor Johns, sorry. Right, I'm going to move down my list. Do you want to go back on the list, Councillor Johns? Councillor Heath, you are up next. You're coming back for the second or third time. I can't remember. Have you got something swift to say?
Second time, Chair, and
Okay.
I'll make it as succinct as I always do. Between 70 and 84.2% of people who voted in a referendum in 2007 in Shropshire, Durham, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole and Somerset were against
got
the
your mic on,
formation of
John?
unitary authorities. So this is an entirely undemocratic process by the government, who would therefore not want a referendum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heath. Councillor... Jess, how long have you had your hand up? Was it been a while? Sorry. Okay, I'm going to call Jess in next, John, then you. Jess Bailey, please.
Thank you. When I saw proposal 2, I slightly balked at it and thought, "Ooh, I'm not sure. Seems a bit quick to be deciding." But actually, having thought about it, I mean, my big concern, like most people, is the kind of centralisation and the removal of services and democracy close to the people, the residents. And my big fear is, from the meeting today, I'm concerned about what Devon County Council are going to do, what direction of travel, what's their proposal going to be. Is it going to be one gigantic mega council for all of Devon, which I am totally opposed to. So having thought about it, I think that actually I would be in support of item number 2, because I think it's potentially the best that we can come up with in a really, frankly, bad situation. I can't see that there's going to be any benefit from all of this. It's going to sap everybody's energy, organisational energy, councillors' energy, and the losers are our residents. So I don't really agree with any of it, but I think, well, I don't agree with devolution, in inverted commas, but I think, having thought about it, I think we should try and actually forge forward with some proposals in a positive direction, because we don't have any other choice, and I think that's what we're going to have to do. So I thank the leader and all the officers for all the hard work. I think it's a really comprehensive report, and thank you for giving up your time over Christmas and in quite difficult situations, so thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Okay, John Loudon, please, next.
So I'm obviously speaking in favour of 1 to 5 because I seconded the leader's proposal. Nothing that is being put in front of you today has been cooked up in this building or in Collerton. This is a response by, or hopefully a response by this council to what the government has foisted upon us. We know that. The issue is, in very short time, we have to try and scrabble around and try and think about how best to respond to what the government has asked of us. And we have to do that basically by tonight, by the end of business tonight. And that's what we're seeking to do by 1 to 5 here. Now, I'm going to just divert slightly and pick up on the point that's been made about towns, parishes, residents, etc. The bits that the government hasn't referenced in the white paper. And if you take Appendix B, which is the joint statement that has so vexed my colleague across the way there, if you go to the penultimate paragraph in there, I think you'll find it's quite helpful. And it may change the mind of my colleague over there, because it talks there about any changes that come out of everything must be carefully considered, transparent and inclusive, ensuring that residents and businesses are fully engaged in shaping the future governance of Devon. That is what the leaders of the 7 district councils and Exeter signed up to. That's what Councillor Arnott has signed up to, for good or bad. You'll make your decision in a minute. But if you accept that statement, then it is in there that you can then hold the leadership and the chief executive to the point that is in there. So given we've got an imperfect set of circumstances, this says to me it gives you a degree, should give you a degree of comfort about the direction of travel, rather than us here tonight trying to sit down and work out what is the right methodology for doing that. And I'm not sure that's the right thing. So turning then to the rest of this, what it is that we're trying to do is to say, yes, we recognise the government wants us to have a mayoral combined authority. We're saying we think we ought to think about, and it's all think about, it's not we will, think about including Devon, Plymouth, Torbay and Cornwall. That's what's being talked about. That goes further than what county signed up today, because all they said today, and I will quote from their recommendation, is that they would support a letter of intent enabling the council to develop plans for local government reorganisation and deliver a mayoral strategic authority. It gives no detail about what that is. This is giving a broad brush to work within. It could be as much as that or something less than the sum of the parts. So that's what we're looking to do. We're then saying, we think, if you take Devon, we think it is too big an entity to run as a unitary on its own. Within that, what we're talking about is, and I think Councillor Young referenced this earlier on, is potentially 3 roughly equal-sized population areas, which would be Cornwall, West Devon, if you will, and East Devon, roughly. They're all more or less around 600,000 population, okay? It meets the 500,000 minimum that Councillor Faithful referenced earlier on, but it also gives a broad, it allows us to try and drill down from having a very large Devon single unitary trying to deliver all of the things that we want it to do. So what we're doing is then putting that as a preferred pathway to talk about, to discuss. We've already been there and agreed that word. So this is about us trying to put something on the table to allow people to come together and to discuss, because otherwise all we're doing is saying to each other, we've got to do something. What should we do? And I'm not going to tell you what I think until you tell me what you think. You know, remember, you know, show me yours, I'll show you mine, you know. And who's going to go first? Well, this is about us showing leadership and saying, here's a thought, what do you think? So this is what this is trying to achieve here. It is trying to take the 7 district councils, the county council, Exeter, Plymouth and Torbay, and trying to do something that we can try and reshape in a manner that is meaningful and deliverable. It may not work, and along the way, as colleagues have referenced earlier on, then obviously you're going to have to be informed as we go forward. Otherwise, the leader and the chief executive cannot stand there and say, oh, I think that's a good idea. I think my council will go along with that. If they did that and it didn't find favour here, we'd be in a right pickle, and I don't wish to see that. So I hope that you can give some, that what is in here will give you some confidence that what is coming out of this council is some thought that's had to be developed very quickly, but it's not set in stone. And it gives a direction of travel to the chief executive to take away, to talk to her colleagues, and to give to the leader to do the same. So I hope that colleagues can support 1 to 5 in their entirety.
Thank you, Councillor Loudon. I think it's safe to say that this is a vision of how we can deliver services and maintain as much proximity to our residents as we can without departing from what's being imposed on us from above. And I think that's what is, it's a vision, what you have in front of you. So it's something that we can discuss. It's a starting point. Councillor Gazard, did you have your hand up at any point? Okay, so I'm putting you on the list. Hang on a second. Have you had your hand up for a while?
Yeah.
You're on. It's you.
Thank you for being so kind, Chair. I'm struggling at the moment with this. I mean, we can put forward what other ideas we like, but I think the reality is that if the government don't like what we put forward, they're going to impose it at any rate. Personally, I mean, I would be in favour of suspending the county council elections of this year, should I say? Because to me, it seems a heck of a lot of money they're going to spend on elections if they went ahead, which could be used for other issues.
Not really our affair, though, I'm afraid, Councillor Gazard.
Just making, because I've got some Devon County councillors here. But what I am concerned about is that none of us in this room, you know, even our leader and our officers, weren't expecting this. It's come as a boat out of the blue to all of us, I think, if we're honest. But my concern is that this is going to take up a heck of a lot of time of staff and officers' time. So therefore, it's got to be resourced. And my concern is that the money that we will have to find to resource whatever we've got to do is detracting from other things that we would have been able to do in this authority. So I'm looking at Simon, who controls the purse strings. If it's going to, well, it's going to cost us money, so where will the money come from?
Simon, is there a fund just sitting there waiting for us to... I mean, who was expecting this? Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
The answer is, the answer council knows, there's no budget set aside for this piece of work at this stage. If you want to make that decision, that's a report that needs to come and a decision to be made by council.
Thank you, Simon. I thought that's what you'd probably say. Right, have you finished, Steve? Okay, fantastic. So for some reason, I've got jumbled up in my list. So on my list, I have Paul H. So Councillor Hayward, do you want to come in at this point, please? And then Dell.
Thank you, Chair. Watching the debate this morning, I personally was just struck by the sheer arrogance being displayed. You know, what we've had is an authority claiming they didn't have to hold the meeting under their standing orders, but they deigned to. We deigned to let you be involved. You had meetings, meet the leader meetings with parish and town councils were cancelled before Christmas. The Team Devon meeting was cancelled. Now they're planning to cancel democratic elections. And it's just the arrogance in that meeting of there's no need for elections because actually new councillors coming in, you'll be too thick and stupid to understand what's being discussed. That's what I took from it. And I'm afraid if you look at Devon as it is, and this was said within the debates, this is not my words, these were words from Devon's own councillors. It's a failing council. It's a bankrupt council. It's a council that's failing already. It's failing vulnerable people. It's failing children. It's being subject to another Ofsted review. It's got a £200 million backlog of highway repairs, £163 million worth of debt in services. So actually, if they're saying, yeah, but just let us carry on for another couple of years because we'll make good, the evidence isn't there. Nationally, what the Labour government, the new Labour government want is lazy government. They don't want to negotiate with hundreds of democratically elected leaders and CEOs who are running their councils. They want tens. They want a compliant sub-government. They can just call in, issue a few edicts and crack on. They certainly don't care about play areas, parks, libraries, toilets, swimming pools, museums, sports centres, dog bins, benches, and neither will a Devon-wide single unitary authority. Because all of those things, in order to save money, will be cut, or they'll be devolved down to the town and parish councils. And the town and parish councils will have to pick up the pieces and the cost to deliver those. And like in Somerset, where the town and parish councils have seen 100%, 200%, 300% precept increases just to maintain the status quo of service delivery of things they used to get, the residents used to get. So the residents, the council, the unitary may have saved a few pounds, and that's open for debate, but the residents who pay council tax have not. They've seen their council tax escalate just to get the same things that they had before. So the principle of unitarisation and devolution, and I entirely agree with Councillor Burrup's point, it's not devolution, it's coalescence, is profoundly wrong. But, as has been pointed out, this is a white paper, so what we're looking at is the best option. I personally don't believe that letting Devon continue down the path of destruction and dereliction of duty is right. It was said today they're bloated. You know, perhaps Devon County Council has reached the end of its natural life, its useful life, and it is the time for reorganisation. And that's why when we come to a vote, I'll be voting in accordance with my conscience and what I feel is the best for Devon, for East Devon, for Axminster, because that's what we're all elected to do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Haggerty up next, and then after that it will be Councillor Johns. Have you got something crucial to say? Because there's a few people on the list who have not yet spoken, but you're here for a second or third. It's not your turn yet, but will you have something extra to add, or can I come back to you after I've called the people? Okay, I'll get back to you then. I will get back to you, but probably not in the order I've got you on the list. So, Councillor Haggerty, please, next.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that concern me is with the finance for the council. We've got, I believe, on most of the days we can have really good debates in here. We can agree most of the time, and we've got a very good template as a council going forward. My fear is refinance, and I know this is being brought on us by the government, which my own opinion says that they haven't got a clue what they're doing at the moment, nor have they since it took place. But refinance, we've got to look at and protect East Devon's reserves, the East Devon assets, our housing stocks. Does this mean when we get shoved with another council, not of our own choice, that the repairs of the councils and the housing stocks is going to go backwards? Because there's been a lot of work done on the housing by Councillor Ledger and his group, and I believe there was a motion in the last meeting looking at the repairs of the houses. And can we not lose sight of this? Because there have been so many inroads in this that we must not let anything drop that in any of this at all. So we have got to protect our reserves, our assets, our housing stock, and the repairs for our people that are here in East Devon, or Devon, as we're going to say. And whoever we get bunged in, we've got to have the same idea as repairing properties for people to live in, unlike we see in other councils around the country living in squalor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haggerty. I think it's very salutary to remind us that we are here for the residents and for our service delivery, and to always keep that at the front of our minds. So thank you for that. Councillor Fernley, you're up next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going back to the time of Councillor Burhup speaking and Jeff Bailey. I echo their sentiments. I'm not going to repeat that. Councillor Burhup talked about this being a revolution and these things are only done in times of emergency. We are actually in a climate emergency, and I think this reorganisation at a time of such turmoil and problems, and you look at what's happening in Los Angeles and you can't possibly ignore what's happening in the world, that this is going to divert all attentions from that particular goal. We've talked about officer time and what they'll be doing. It certainly isn't going to be working out how we defeat how we contribute to climate in our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fernley. Next up, we have Councillor Jackson, please.
Thank you. I just want to pick up very quickly before I sort of make my wider point on something that Councillor Ringham said about Devon as a whole and identifying as a Devonian. I'm not sure a smaller unitaries making up Devon would make anyone any less Devonian. And I think North Yorkshire being a prime example, I don't think that anyone living in any other parts of Yorkshire feel any less Yorkshire than those living in North Yorkshire, which of course is a unitary more recently. But that's a side point. My primary concern really is what the government's seeking to do here. I'm not opposed to devolution, but I don't think that's what we've got. And it's disappointing that we're heading down this route, I feel. We know that as organisations get bigger, they get slower, they get harder to change the direction of. We have, if we ended up in a large single unitary for the whole of Devon, a situation where there will be, well, it's going to be the case either way, but there'll be fewer councillors who are there to represent the residents within the entire area. And as was mentioned before, that means fewer councillors doing a lot more. We already know that it's hard work being a councillor. Everyone here works really hard. But you're covering only a small number of service areas. Those individuals would be covering the service areas of both district and county combined. I'm not sure that that makes the opportunity of being involved in local government easier. It would mean that those who have families, younger people, those in full-time jobs, perhaps would be less interested in being involved in their local councils. And for me, that's a crying shame, because it's that diversity of view that makes good decision making. So if you consider that, and you consider the extra pressures that would be on those individuals that did take up that challenge, and the capacity that they may or may not have to cover all service areas and all of the residents within their patches, I can't see how an organisation of that scale would be of benefit. So I can get behind the idea of two smaller unitaries. I might not like the idea, but I would prefer it that way round than one larger one. And I think it's important that we put a stake in the ground now and say, look, that's what we would prefer, because it gives the opportunity to be more fleet of foot. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. And I'm sure Councillor Chubb will back us up that some of the wards are insanely large, and there are a great many communities and a great many contacts to be made within those wards. And it in no way resembles a borough of London. And in that respect, I'm quite certain that a larger authority will produce less local representation, less present local representation, because it simply won't be possible to attend, 70 communities. You would not be able to go to the parish councils every month. That simply wouldn't be possible anymore. So in that respect, things will change quite drastically. So I do agree with you there. Councillor Jenny Brown, please, you're next.
Yeah, just a query. With the Somerset, when they went unitary, was there a large area of rural like there is with Devon? And how did they work out what councillors looked after what? Did they do it by area or by population?
Mel, can you fill us in on that? Can you remember?
It's based on the divisional wards that the county council had, basically. So they determined in Somerset, I think off the top of my head, Andrew will know more, that it was 110 members for the whole of the unitary. And when you think that, how many did we have in the district? Yeah, we had 59 just in the one district council, and obviously then times that by another 3. So So it was then a total of 110, although I think that's likely to be reduced by the Boundary Commission in due course as well. So does that answer your question? Yeah.
110 seems like quite a large undertaking, really. So yeah, so a significant reduction in local representatives, I think we could expect. Councillor Ingham, you're next on my list, but you are not. It's not the first time you're speaking. Councillor Goodman, have you spoken already on this item? Would you mind if I come back to you, Councillor Ingham? I'm going to ask Councillor Goodman first.
Well, thank you. I did write quite a detailed speech I was going to give tonight, and I was, like many people, reading the white paper over Christmas and beyond. But I've heard a lot of debate tonight, and unfortunately a lot of it is not found on actual facts, because the truth is the government are going to make the decision. We can say what we like tonight, but the government are going to make the decision. Now, after the government have made the decision, then we need this debate of how we respond. Absolutely. But we will know in January, end of January, what the government wants. They may well say one unity, they may say to Devon, no, we don't support it. But we're going to know in principle of what the government wants. After then, absolutely, we've got to talk to various people, including Devon. In what really strikes me in disappointing, that in the motion, there is no mention of talking to Devon. There should be, because they're going to be the principal authority, whatever you like. They're the one that have put the expression of interest or will tomorrow. And I'm disappointed that Devon's not in there. I think it should be. I also want to go back to what was said earlier on by Paul Hayward about the meeting today. I was there, like a number of people, listening to it, and I would actually say overall it was a real good quality debate by all sides. But it was quite clear the Liberal Party were having a go at the government. They were having a go at the county, because that's what they would do to discredit them. And I saw that. But as for the issue of delaying the elections, I think it was made very clear that it wasn't just that the councillors wouldn't have the experience immediately to go into all these discussions which we need. What they were concerned about is the staff, because if you go into an election with PERDA, etc., it would be so difficult to do both and then come out the other end. And it's a staff pressure that I would say is a problem. What I would say in summary is that this is going to happen. I think it's a pretty poor reorganisation. I think it's been thrown on us. We haven't got a choice. We either get into the game or we get out. There's no question of that. And all I'm saying tonight is I think once we know, which will be in perhaps 2 or 3 weeks' time, then we got to decide exactly what we're going to do. That's my opinion. I'd also say, if we are going down the route of 1 or 2, whatever it might be, I think the point that was made earlier on, I think it would be really helpful, because this is going to take some time, if a small group cross-party was put together to help that process, because that is so important that we get everybody on board once we know we're going to go for 1 or 2 unitaries. Now, that's not to decide tonight, but I think it's something would need to be considered once we know what's happening. I've got nothing else to add, but I won't be supporting.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. I think the leader would like to come in on some of your points. Leader.
Yes, thank you, Chair, very much, and thank you, Councillor Goodman. So this debate has now taken a political turn, and I really regret that. So I'm going to correct something Councillor Goodman has said. Our relationships, our ongoing relationships, my personal ongoing relationship with James McInnes at Devon County is excellent, and we speak. But as Councillor Hayward said earlier, it was very sad that the meeting before Christmas with towns and parishes was cancelled. It was very sad that the meeting earlier this week with Team Devon, which is held in complete good faith on a voluntary basis by county and all the Devon and all the districts, was cancelled. We do everything we can to keep in touch. No, it's not there as a specific recommendation, but you might as well, put another recommendation in. Councillor Arnott should contribute to charity or something. You can take it for granted that this is happening, and as we move on, I am certain there will be a meeting of Team Devon in the next couple of weeks, perhaps month. And I will be in touch with James. I'll probably call him tomorrow and ask him to summon that. So it is a canard to say that we are not talking to county. We have to talk to county. That then goes to the point, very well made points earlier around the finances and about the services coming forward. When we go unitary, whatever shape it is, it has to be county and district talking together. And people have given very good examples. For example, if we went, for sake of example, with East-West, do you inadvertently include all of the children's homes in Devons in one and none in the other? All of that needs to be richly understood. And luckily, because we have Mel here, who has led on this with Somerset in the past, I am sure she will help us make sure there are committees set up to do this. I think today, if I was a Conservative member, I would absolutely vote against all sorts of items of this, because you have been and are whipped. You cannot back the letter we've already written, because your county council, and we've got 1, 2, 3 of you here in the room today, has already voted, and you've been told to vote against that. So that's completely logical. Marcus, of course you have been I mean, in a way, it's quite interesting to hear, and it's not for today, the justification from the individuals here about a Brucey bonus year of councillor allowances by avoiding an election.
Leader,
I'm still talking,
Leader,
Councillor Brown.
Right, can we?
Sorry.
Excuse
What?
me, Councillor Brown.
No,
Councillor
county.
Councillor Brown,
county,
through me,
county.
please. Through me, through the chair.
I will. I'm sure you voted with your
Right.
conscience. So, moving forward, of course, we will have to work with with other people in other parties. But a point I would have to make today, and I make it specifically to a number of people who I would consider colleagues on my own side and others, you do not have, please, the luxury of abstaining today. If you do that, and you may want to do that because you think devolution's a terrible idea, devolution like this is a shocking idea. Labour should hang their heads in shame. The Tories at County Hall should hang their heads in shame for trying to cancel the elections for no good reason. They know damn well they've got no realistic prospect of being considered for the first phase because they do not have unanimity around. It's just a try on what they did today. Let's have a go and see. There's no way that they can get something sorted out for this time to next year. And we know this as a fact. But I understand and I respect you're going to vote as a Conservative bloc one way. I would urge everybody else, we now need to make the best of a bad job. Please don't try and cherry pick out of this what you think meets your ideals, because this doesn't meet my ideals. We need as a council to enable ourselves to play a constructive role moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. Right, if we could avoid getting spicy for the rest of the meeting, that would really suit
Chairman,
me.
can I?
Right, no, not right now, sorry. I've got a whole load of people who have not yet spoken here, I'm afraid. Councillor Olive, you have not yet spoken, have you? It is up to you. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, like many others in this room, am a Lib Dem. Among other things, that means, as a principle, I wholeheartedly support the principle of devolution. What we're talking about tonight stains the very idea. As Councillor Burrup has already said, the government's pursuit of local government reorganisation, not devolution, reorganisation, and the creation of unitaries is fundamentally the opposite of devolution. It is about moving power further away to some abstract, indistinct and unaccountable other, far removed from our communities and utterly unable to properly represent and act in the interests of the residents it is supposed to serve. It's a disgrace. Chair, I represent 3 of East Devon's small rural communities, Wimple, Rockbere and Marsh Green. Communities like these already struggle to get a look in authorities the size of East Devon, let alone a larger unitary authority. One unitary for all of Devon, Chair, would marginalise our communities and minimise our residents' voices to an incomprehensible degree. It is utter insanity. It won't save money. It won't simplify decision making. All it will do is distract everyone in local government from providing the best possible services to our residents and dealing with the pressing and urgent issues that need resolving today, here, now. To give you an example from my portfolio, Chair, the governance of East Devon's second new community. Can we afford to spend the next 5 years dealing with this government's fetish for pointless reorganisation and putting off those crucial decisions? I think our colleagues from Cranbrook here tonight would tell us quite categorically not. Am I objecting to an edict from government about which we can, in reality, do very little? Probably, yes. Feels quite a lot like strategic planning in that regard. I think it's really important, though, that those points are made. If we're forced to go through with this, which I think we probably will be, so be it. The recommendation for advocating 2 unitaries in front of us centred on Exeter and Plymouth seems to me, at least, to be a lesser evil than the ridiculous and cynical idea put forward by the Conservatives at County for reasons that others have gone into. On balance, I'll vote for it, frankly, under duress. The last thing then that I want to say, Chair, is how utterly disgusted I am with the cynical and opportunist proposal from those same Conservatives to put off this May's elections. There is no way, no chance, no remote possibility that reorganisation will move fast enough for things to kick off next May. Even if there was, Chair, we live in a democracy. In a democracy, sovereignty rests with the people, with our residents. Authority rests unequivocally with the people. That a political group has the arrogance and hubris to suggest that they should be granted extra time to rule over the reorganisation process with a mandate from the people 4 years out of date, since when they've been unceremoniously dumped out of government in one of the largest political earthquakes in British political history, is a disgrace. And I think those that voted for it should be ashamed of themselves. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Olive. And I think your words and those of Councillor Jackson are echoed in many academic articles published, since this announcement, in terms of the lowering of representation for our residents and the knock-on negative effect on services. Those are coming through very loud and clear as being pretty much certain effects of this. Right, so I'm running through my list at the moment. I'm not going to call anybody who's already spoken at this point. If there's somebody who hasn't yet spoken on my list. Oh, and Councillor Rickson just put her hand up. Right, so Councillor Brian Bailey, have you spoken yet?
No, Chair. Well, apart from that point of order.
Oh, yes, the non-point of order. Okay, yes, you may speak now. This is you coming in to speak properly. Come on, you're on.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to finish off a word that Councillor Olive mentioned just now, dictate. Well, I'd like to finish a word off dictatorship, because we're being dictated to by a government that was elected fairly and squarely. However, they are traditionally for the people. And as people have mentioned here on numerous occasions, in this white paper, there's no mention of the residents, no mention of what's going to happen to them, no mention of a lack of services, which are inadequate at the moment. And I think it's a total waste of money. However, because they have the political power to do so, and alas, this room has no power to stop them, that we're going to have to very reluctantly accept it. But once we're in the door, that's the time to have this discussion at greater length, weeks for even months, because we need to get in the door, and then you can alter the thinking and of the creation of the process. As much as we like to protest here and now, the fact of the matter is the government, or possibly Devon County, aren't going to take any notice of us whatsoever. So let's get in there, join the club, and then change the rules. That's the point I'm coming from. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey, and I actually think that's what we're here for today. Right, so I'm being asked if maybe we can have a small break, because we're knocking on 2 hours now, and I'm conscious that people might need to visit the smallest room. So with that in mind, I'm now going to call a break, and I would like you back, please, for on the dot of 8 o'clock, because we still got some stuff to discuss.
Chair, sorry, very quickly, when we come back from a break, we all seem to be saying the same thing. Can we go to a vote, please?
You'll have to ask. Some people have yet to speak, Del, so I will try and speed it up as quickly as possible. 1 minute, please, 1 minute. Right, we're going to start again, ladies and gentlemen. If you could take your places really quickly, please. We are going to begin again. Now, during the intermission, our wonderful CEO, Tracy, has come up with a form of words which may satisfy Councillor Johns. So I'm actually going to ask, are we live, Andrew, first of all? Yes, we are. Thank you. I'm going to ask Tracy, would you be able to read what you've drafted, which may or may not satisfy Councillor Johns? So it was the issue of consultation, and we're feeling, obviously we haven't had time to consult, but Tracy, what have you got for us?
So we've got it on the screen now, to lobby the government on the importance of a Devon-wide referendum to ensure that any revised local government structures meets the principles of devolved powers to local communities rather than being imposed by Whitehall.
What do you think, Vicky?
If I may, where it says devolve powers to local communities, would that also include town/parish councils as mentioned on previous occasions before, or should we put a comma, town/parish councils, to ensure that Whitehall, we know what we're talking about, but they don't know what they're talking about, full stop. So I think maybe we need to put a little comma and then just put town/parish councils if possible.
I'm feeling within the room that we're all quite nervous that they may have forgotten that towns and parishes exist. So
Exactly.
Is that an amendment we can put in, like to specify that we mean towns and parishes in brackets?
Yeah, no, local communities, commas, then towns and parish councils. Just to remind those above that, us mere minions down here do know what we're doing. Thank you.
Okay, so would that please you? Okay. So I think I need a seconder for that addition, don't I? Councillor Gazzard, you're happy to second? Okay, so we have a seconder in Councillor Gazzard. So a proposer and seconder.
Because the leader proposed.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Leader, would you accept this extra item?
I'll be absolutely delighted. The whole purpose of tonight is thought like this.
Okay, so proposed and seconded by Councillors John and Gazzard and accepted fulsomely by the leader. So we have a 6th item to vote on when it comes to it. Now, some people have had very long days and they want to go home. So I am not going to take very many any repeat questions unless it is absolutely crucial and you indicate to me in a very short number of words what it is you're about to say. So with that in mind, I'm only going to ask the people on my list who have not yet spoken to speak at this point, and then we, I think, going to go to a vote. So the people on my list who have not yet spoken are Roy Collins and Councillor Rixon. Now, Roy, do you think you can contribute without delving too much into Lloyd George? But actually, I admire your knowledge, but this is probably not the evening for it.
I'm planning to go back before Lloyd George.
Go for it, Roy.
My great-grandfather, he was a Honiton town councillor for 21 years, and he was serving in the 1990s, probably about 95, 96. There was a big debate then about forming county councils. County councils were formed in 1897. My grandfather, along with most of the other town councillors, fought very hard against setting up the Devon County Councils, all county councils. Before we had county councils, all the functions the county council does now were all decided locally. We had quarter sessions, and they used to meet and they decided about the schools and the hospital and the workhouse. We had workhouses then, and roads. All that was decided locally.
We may get back there, Councillor Pam Collins.
Now,
could we
moving
please-
on to 1977, I stood for Devon County Council.
Sorry, just for a second, Roy. I have a point of order coming from Councillor Loudon. I do trust it's actually a proper point of order. Could you just turn your microphone off for a second, please?
Chair, it is, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to Councillor Collins, but can we get to the point?
Yeah, a lot
Greatest respect.
a lot of people are getting tired, Councillor Collins. So would
Well,
you
I've
please?
had to listen to their claptrap, so they can listen to mine.
That is not respectful, Councillor Collins.
In 1977, I stood for Devon County. I've got the leaflet in front of me.
We don't need to see the leaflet.
And in there, I wrote, the word devolution is on everyone's lips at the moment. Roy Collins believes that the only way in which the South West will prosper is to set up an elected regional assembly embracing Devon, Cornwall, Dorset and Somerset. I could go on.
I'm very thankful
That
you're not
was
going on.
Liberal policy. All Liberal candidates stood under that. Before the election, we had about 20 Liberals on Devon County. After the election, we were left with 2. So regional government was firmly thrown out. Now, I used to attend lots
Councillor
of
Collins,
Devon
could I ask you for your
County-
thoughts on this paper now?
Yes, I used to attend lots of Devon County Council meetings in the 70s when we had Plymouth, Torquay, Exeter and everywhere else. And you used to see an awful lot of bickering going on amongst the Conservatives from Plymouth, Torbay and Exeter. They could never agree. It was quite an entertainment to go to those meetings. And that's what you will get now if you have an all Devon unitary. They will not agree. I've seen it many times at Devon County.
So you're not
It's
hopeful?
not a pretty sight, I can tell
You're not hopeful?
you. No.
Okay.
But-
Can you draw your remarks to a close, please? Because we've got about 4 more people.
But I do feel strongly that we as a council, we should be fighting against all this. We were elected by the people of East Devon to represent them here.
Okay.
Provide their services and everything else, not run away now and be forced by the government into some old crackpot scheme.
I take your point that we are about local service delivery and being as close as we can to our residents, and that is one of the distressing things about this process. But we are confronted with it, and we cannot do anything about it.
Well, I
right.
disagree. I think we can. If all district councils were to agree together and say, we're not going to do this, what can the government do? What can they do if we all refuse
They
to do it?
could just abolish us anyway, I suspect. Right, okay, I'm going to move to Councillor Rickson now. Thank you very much, Councillor Collins. There you are.
Thank you. I would just like to say that I fundamentally disagree with the comment made by Councillor Goodman that we should wait and see. If we don't get our act together, the government will impose a decision on us. Therefore, if we're to have any say and be able to shape the future, we have to put a stake in the ground now and make a decision tonight about our preferred direction of travel. Can we please go to a vote?
Thank you, Councillor Rickson. So I'm just going to quickly look to my right. I'm right in thinking that we are actually actively being asked to help shape this, aren't we? We are being asked to put forward projects, like plans of how what a future authority would look like.
We're being asked if, to put forward any proposals that we have. Obviously not at this stage tomorrow. That would be the next stage. But yes, absolutely, we are.
We are taking part in the process that's being put to us, so waiting and see isn't really an option, so I do concur with you, Councillor Rickson. Councillor Aurora Bailey, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to point out that I thought this meeting this evening was to do with the government. What we're doing is we're saying that we will go with it, with obviously different things you're going to put to it, But I actually as well, Chair, I'd like to put the record straight. I went to Devon County this morning and sat in the meeting for nearly 3 hours. And the reason they are not doing the elections is because, as we all know, elections takes a lot of officers and it takes a lot of staff and it takes a lot of time. So if we're doing that and the government has asked us to do this, you can't have the staff doing 2 jobs. So that's why it was voted out. It's not for any other political reason, it's because of the staff. And I was there when they debated it for nearly 3 hours.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Yeah,
I
no,
just
I
wanted
think
to put that
people,
across. Thank you, Chair.
people may have different views on whether that's a good thing or not. Right, and lastly, the last person to speak for the first time is Councillor Mackinder, please. And then I'm going to, I think, call for a vote.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very quick. The suggestion was to change the word negotiations in point 4 to discussions. On the same vein, you should change the word negotiations in point 5 to discussions, just for completeness. Thank you.
Fair point, fair point. So is that a proposal? Who would like to second it? Councillor Hayward seconding. So
Yeah, you don't need to again, if the leader's happy with that change.
are you happy to accept that change, Leader? Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. So no need for a seconder. So we're going to change that negotiation to discussion as it is in point 4. No, Councillor Ingham, I'm not going to bring you back in, I'm afraid. Is it a genuine point of order? Okay. Councillor, please, can you put your microphone on, please?
Yeah, sure, it'll be quick. And that was on that item about 2 unitaries for Devon.
This is not really a point of order, is it?
Well, it is because I was named.
That's not a
Which is-
thing. That is not a thing. That's not a thing. Sorry, that is not a thing. Right, I'm going to move on now. I think I had Eileen Wragg who wanted to come in last, give us a little rousing sum up of what we've just heard and what we could do next. So Eileen, over to you, and then we're going to go to a vote.
Thank you, Chair. Hardly rousing, but I think this has thrown everybody into a quandary. It was sprung on us just before Christmas. I'd like to reassure any of the newer councillors, if you're feeling bewildered, you're not alone in this. Goodness knows what the public must be feeling like. Some of them don't even know which council is which. They refer to it as the council. It is very, very puzzling to a lot of people. What I will say is that this was sprung on us. The leader of our council, the leaders of other councils have put aside their Christmas celebrations. They've worked all over the Christmas period while some of us have been enjoying ourselves. They've come up with this framework. They've presented it with us. They've spoken with each other, cross-party. That's good government. That's working together. And that's what we should be doing. And we should all, every single one of us, be voting tonight. If we don't, we'll be letting down our communities. We've been given this skeleton. Now we've got to flesh it out. And we have that to hold on to. So we do have some power. Let's build on it. And let's take this forward. It's a beginning. There's an awful lot to go through. A lot of it will come down to finance, we know that. But what we want to do is to save extra unnecessary expenditure on our residents, which many of them are already enduring abysmal difficulties. So let's go forward with this. I'm asking you as a long-serving councillor, 30 years in total this year on all 3 councils. This has been in the pipeline. There've been rumblings for many years. But now this has been thrown at us and we have to do something. To do nothing is not an option. So I urge you all to vote, please, whichever way you want to go, but please do use your vote. That's what you've been elected for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wragg. Now, I had early on a request that we vote individually on every single item, but what I'm getting from the room this evening isn't necessarily that. I feel that people wanted the option to be able to vote on 1A separately, would you be happy to vote on all the others en bloc, just to save time? So okay. It's just that we've also added another item, I'm conscious. So 1A, I'm conscious that I think the Conservative group wanted to vote differently on to the other bits, potentially. But it was Colin and you who asked for it, so okay. So with that in mind, would people be happy to vote on everything but 1A en bloc? Right, so I've got a proposal coming from Councillor Brown that we vote on 1A, 1B and 1C separately. Okay, well, that's not what I understood. I understood that you wanted to vote on every single item separately.
The original proposal was 1A,
Oh, microphone, please, because people at the
and
back.
the rest en bloc. Then Councillor Hayward suggested that all of them should be done individually. So we amended our proposal. But if people don't want to do that, I think we're happy to go to just the 3 and then the rest en bloc.
I'm going to ask Councillor Hayward because he came up with voting for everyone individually. Councillor Hayward.
The intention of what I meant was, personally, you either do them all or you do them en bloc. But if the members wish to do A, B and C, and then 2 to 5 inclusive,
6.
because that
So
will
there are
save
6 now.
5 rounds of voting reduced down to 1.
Should
But
we do that?
I personally, and I think we've had a vote in the room, would still like a recorded vote on 2 to 5 en bloc, or now 2 to
2 to
6,
6, yeah.
as substantively put forward.
So you are amending your request to doing
I think
1A,
it was
1B, 1C separately, and then
misunderstood, but yeah,
2 to 6
I'm
together.
happy, and it's hardly down to me, but to do 1A, 1B, 1C, 2 to 6 inclusive.
Is anybody willing to second that in the room? Oh, I have got several. Oh, Councillor Wibley is willing to second that. If you're in favour of doing it on that basis, which is voting individually on 1A, 1B, 1C, and then 2 to 6 en bloc, would you please raise your hand now? If you are against it, would you please raise your hand now? I think that's clearly carried. Yep. Okay, I understand not everybody will agree, and that's democracy. So what we are going to do actually is we're going to move to a vote on 1A, 1B and 1C, and they are, I remind you, recorded votes, so we have to go through the entire roll call individually to get an answer. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Andrew, who is going to call everybody's name individually, and the first thing we're voting on is 1A. So when your name is called, would you please indicate whether you whether you want to vote for 1A or against 1A? Andrew, are you ready? Mel, are you ready?
It's going to be
Yes.
Okay, it's a tag
Yes.
team happening.
Yes,
Andrew will then
we are
capture
ready,
the,
Chair.
the vote.
Okay,
I
so
will call
Mel
out
is
the
going to ask
names.
you.
So starting, if you could please indicate whether you're for, against or abstaining. Starting please with Councillor Arnott.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey, Aurora Bailey.
Against.
Councillor Brian Bailey.
Against.
Councillor Kevin Blakey.
For.
Councillor Bloxham.
For.
Councillor Colin Brown.
Against.
Councillor Jenny Brown.
Against.
Councillor Burrup.
For.
Councillor Maddie Chapman.
Against.
Councillor Bethany Collins.
For.
Councillor Roy Collins. Councillor Davey.
For.
Councillor Dumper.
For.
Councillor Faithful.
Abstain.
Councillor Fernley.
For.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
For.
Councillor Gazzard.
For.
Councillor Goodman.
Against.
Councillor Haggerty.
For.
Councillor Anne Hall.
For.
Councillor Matt Hall.
For.
Councillor Hartnell.
Against.
Councillor Hawkins,
For.
Councillor Hayward,
For.
Councillor Heath,
For.
Councillor Hookway,
For.
Councillor Hughes,
Against.
Councillor Ingham,
Against.
Councillor Jackson,
For.
Councillor Jeffries,
For.
Councillor Johns,
For.
Councillor Young,
For.
Councillor Loudon,
For.
Councillor McKinder,
For.
Councillor McCullum,
For.
Councillor Nicholas,
Against.
Councillor Olive,
For.
Councillor Parr,
Against.
Councillor Riddell,
Against.
Councillor Rickson,
For.
Councillor Rylance,
For.
Councillor Toy,
For.
Councillor Wibley,
For.
Councillor Wilson,
For.
and Councillor Ragg.
For.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just totting up some figures. It was fairly clearly carried. Mel, have you got some figures for us?
To do that. Yes, thank you, Chair. So in respect of recommendation 1A regarding the joint leaders' statements, the vote is 31 for, 12 against and 2 abstentions.
Thank you very much, both. Next, item 1B, which is potential to promote the establishment of a mayoral combined authority for the peninsula to cover Devon, Plymouth, Torbay and Cornwall. And we do the same thing again. And I thank you for your forbearance because this is lengthy and slightly clunky as a process.
Thank you. So starting with Councillor Arnott, please.
For.
Councillor Bailey, Aurora Bailey, sorry.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Bailey.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Blakey.
For.
Councillor Bloxham.
For.
Councillor Colin Brown. Councillor Jenny Brown.
For.
Councillor Burrup.
For.
Councillor Chapman.
For.
Councillor Chubb. Ah, it's gone, sorry. Councillor Collins.
For.
Bethany Collins, sorry. That was 4. Did you get that? Yeah. Councillor Roy Collins. Councillor Davey.
For.
Councillor Dumper.
For.
Councillor Faithful.
For.
Councillor Paula Fernley.
For.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
For.
Councillor Gazzard.
Against.
Councillor Goodman.
For.
Councillor Haggerty.
Microphone, please, Mike.
For.
Councillor Anne Hall.
For.
Councillor Matt Hall.
Against.
Councillor Hartnell.
For.
Councillor Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Hayward.
For. Thank you.
Councillor Heath.
For.
Councillor Hookway.
For.
Councillor Hughes.
For.
Councillor Ingham.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
Abstain.
Councillor Jeffries.
For.
Councillor Johns.
For.
Councillor Young.
For.
Councillor Kemp. Oh, sorry, he's not here. Councillor Loudon.
For.
Councillor McKinder.
For.
Councillor McCullum.
For.
Councillor Nicholas.
For.
Councillor Olive.
For.
Councillor Parr.
For.
Councillor Riddell,
For.
Councillor Rickson,
4.
Councillor Rylance,
4.
Councillor Toy,
For.
Councillor Wibley,
Abstain.
Councillor Wilson,
For.
and Councillor Ragg.
4. There'll be a few moments while the counting happens. I think that was very clearly carried, though. I feel like we need a Wurlitzer to come out of the ground so we can have a bit of intermission music. Please don't. Does anybody second that?
Thank,
I have a proposal to sing over in the corner.
thank you, Chair. The recommendation 1B is carried by a clear majority of 40 votes for and 2 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much, Andrew and Mel. Right, okay, moving on to 1C. The end is in sight, I promise. So item 1C, with the need to engage with our communities, partners and stakeholders to develop considered and coherent proposals around changes to the current model of 10 councils in Devon to a smaller number of suitably sized unitaries rather than defaulting to a single unitary approach. Again, another recorded vote. The screen has gone blue. Sorry. Oh, you've been logged out. I think the screen is trying to tell us something. It's giving us subtle cues. Well, we know it's a row of asterisks, yes. Right, Andrew and Mel, please take it away.
Thank you. So recommendation 1C, Councillor Arnott, please.
Just waiting for Councillor Jackson.
Sorry, it was just to check with the computer going to sleep whether the recording was still working.
Oh, yeah, that's run on a different one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Arnott.
4.
Councillor Arnott. Sorry, thank you. Councillor Aurora Bailey.
Against.
Councillor Brian Bailey.
Against.
Councillor Blakey.
4.
Councillor Bloxham.
4.
Councillor Brown. Colin Brown. Councillor Jenny Brown.
Against.
Councillor Burrup.
4.
Councillor Chapman.
Against.
Councillor Bethany Collins.
4.
Councillor Roy Collins. 4. Councillor Davey.
4.
Councillor Dumper.
4.
Councillor Faithful.
Against.
Councillor Fernley.
4.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
4.
Councillor Gazzard.
4.
Councillor Goodman.
Against.
Councillor Haggerty.
4.
Councillor Anne Hall.
4.
Councillor Matt Hall.
4.
Councillor Hartnell.
Abstain.
Councillor Hawkins.
4.
Councillor Hayward.
4.
Councillor Heath.
4.
Councillor Hookway.
4.
Councillor Councillor Stuart Hughes.
Against.
Councillor Ingham.
Against.
Councillor Jackson.
4.
Councillor Jeffries.
4.
Councillor Johns.
4.
Councillor Young.
4.
Councillor Loudon.
Microphone, please, Jeff.
4.
Councillor McKinder.
4.
Councillor McCullum.
4.
Councillor Nicholas.
Against.
Councillor Olive.
4.
Councillor Parr.
Against.
Councillor Riddell.
Against.
Councillor Rickson.
4.
Councillor Rylance.
4.
Councillor Toy.
4.
Councillor Wibley.
4. The microphone's not working.
I don't know who lost. Andrew, can you switch off your microphone, please? Thanks.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
4.
And Councillor Ragg.
4.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's fairly clearly carried as well, but we'll get some figures in a moment. And then we'll move on to voting on items 2 to 6 en bloc. Oh, that will happen. That will happen. Don't worry, because we can't see 6 at the moment, and that's quite crucial. I will reread 6 since it's hasn't been in the papers until just now. Councillor Dumper, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask advice. I mean, we've taken a vote that we're going to vote on 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 together. I oppose quite strongly a couple of those and support the other 3. How would I be advised to vote?
I think that'll probably be up to your conscience, Councillor Dumper. You have to decide which outweighs the others. Or you could abstain, yeah. But it's right now in front of us on the screen. Oh yes, sorry, numbers.
Thank you, Chair. In respect of recommendation 1C, the fours are 32 against 12 and 2 abstentions.
So that is clearly carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Now we are going to vote on items 2 to 6.
Ensure that what?
Sorry?
Ensure that what?
Sorry?
Don't see the bottom. Number 6.
Oh, okay, yes, no, but don't worry, I'm going to reread that one as well, because people won't have seen it necessarily. So item 2 you have in your papers. I will read item 2 and then we can scroll down so we can see item 6.
We've got it.
Okay, brilliant, we can see it. Right, so I will read to you item 6, and it says, to lobby the government on the importance of a Devon-wide referendum to ensure that any revised local government structures meet, can we change that to meet, please, rather than meet, because it's grammatically incorrect, the principles of devolved powers to local communities, towns and parish councils, rather than being imposed by Whitehall. Thank you, Andrew. So that rogue S is going. Councillor Fitzgerald, please, yes.
Thank you. 2 points. We haven't discussed point 6 since seeing this draft, I don't believe. And I was persuaded, well, I was persuaded already, but particularly by Councillor Arnott's points earlier about the dangers of a referendum, and now we're putting it as a last-minute recommendation in a block. I cannot vote for a referendum. I think this is a terrible idea. So my first question is, can we remove referendum and change it to consultation? And my second point is, could we just not vote for all of these points separately, following Councillor Dumper's point, but instead of having a roll call, just a show of hands vote?
Right, on your first point, we're not actually voting to hold a referendum. We're voting to lobby government about extra consultation, which is not at all the same thing, thankfully. On your second point, it's just to lobby the government on the importance of a Devon-wide referendum. We're not voting for a referendum. So just voting for it tonight doesn't make it happen.
It's suggesting that we want a referendum. I'm simply suggesting that we change referendum to consultation, and that would be much more palatable to those of us who are fundamentally against a referendum on this topic.
Councillor Fitzgerald is asking to substitute for the word referendum, the word consultation. I don't know, can I go back to Councillor Johns? Would you be happy with that substitution? Councillor Johns is indicating that she would. Now, who seconded it? Oh, you adopted it. Okay, so Leader, are you happy to accept that substitution as well?
I'm content, thank you.
So that's coming from, okay, so fantastic. So we can accept that substitution, Councillor Fitzgerald, thank you very much. Councillor Faithful, is it going to be short and sweet and to the point?
Yes, I would support Councillor Dumper and Councillor those two comments.
You don't,
I
that's
don't
fine,
agree.
that's fantastic.
There's
You don't-
part I agree and part I don't agree, and I would like to vote separately, but I just a show of hands rather than to get this done.
We can't do that now at this stage, I'm afraid. So we have to vote for them en bloc now. So item 6 now reads, instead of, where are we? Instead of referendum, it now reads consultation. So if you can't read it on the screen, it's moving us away from the potential hubris of referendum and asking for more consultation, which is very fair and also should be already present in the process, but isn't. Councillor Johns.
Sorry, just a very quick question, a clarification, if I may. Is there a particular reason why? I know that the original ones we voted to vote and, you know, it was a named vote, etc., etc. Is there a reason why these can't, because there's so many people that seem unhappy about voting for these on a block, is there a reason? I know, I'm just asking the question, John. I'm allowed to ask a question. It is why I was voted on. So, is there a reason why they can't be voted individually but without the named roll call? I'm just asking the question before I get shot by John.
Okay, well, we could do that.
We'd have to agree with that.
Would people be happier to go for a show of hands on each of the items 2 to 6? Can you indicate with a show of hands now if you're happy with that? And if you're unhappy with that, put your hand up now. Oh, I think that's what we'll do then. What we will do is we'll stop having recorded votes on items 2 to 6. We will vote on each one individually, but if it's close, I may ask you to keep your hand up for a bit longer so we can count. Okay, a question from Ollie Davey. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Davey, please.
A very quick one. Could I ask that we lose the S on towns? Because otherwise it sounds as though you're separating out towns from parish councils.
Fair point,
so
fair
we mean
point, yeah.
town and parish
So it's town
councils.
council and parish council rather than the entire town. Okay. So we are losing the S on town. Thank you very much. Right. So henceforth, we shall proceed item by item, but with a show of hands. And I will ask you to keep your hand up if it's close. Okay. So item 2, Article 2, about the preferred pathway. If you are in favour of that item, would you please raise your hand now? If you are against that item, would you please raise your hand now? And if you wish to abstain, would you please raise your hand now? And that is very clearly carried. Thank you very much. Item 3, the belief that people of Devon will be best served after the abolition of county council with 2 new unitaries. If you are in favour of that item, would you please raise your hand now? If you are against that item, would you please raise your hand now? And if you wish to abstain on that item, would you please raise your hand now? That is also very clearly carried. Thank you very much, with a few abstentions. Right, so that was clearly carried, item 3. Item 4, about granting delegated authority of the Chief Executive to hold discussions, not negotiations, on the shape of things to come. If you are in favour of that item, would you please raise your hand now? If you are against that item, would you please raise your hand now? And if you wish to abstain on it, would you please raise your hand now? And that is clearly carried. Thank you very much. Item 5, we will get a report back in February at the next full council. If you are in favour of that item, would you please raise your hand now? If you are against that item, please raise your hand now. If you wish to abstain, raise your hand now. And that is unanimous, I think. Miraculous. And on item 6, about the need for more consultation and lobbying for it from government, if you are in favour of that item, would you please raise your hand now? If you are against that item, would you please raise your hand now? And if you wish to abstain, would you please raise your hand now? And that is very clearly carried as well. Thank you very much for those much swifter votes. Now, I wanted to thank you all for coming all this way on this very, very cold evening. Be very careful going back. It'll be really slidey. And thank you very much for your attendance at such short notice. Good night, everybody.